Assalamu alaikum, guys. So, welcome to another part of trigonometric series, trigonometry series. All right. So, in this video, we're going to start off with our last topic for trigonometry, and that is trigonometric graphs. All right. So, yeah, 1 minute. Trigonometric, trigonometric graphs. All right. So, first up, we will draw sin x. We already know what a sin x graph looks like. So I will just recap it first, and then from that graph, we are going to drive the graph of cosec x. All right. So sin x first. Okay. So here we have 0. Uh, let's 90, 180, 270, and 360. And this is 1, and this is -1. So a sin x graph will look something like this, as we already know, passing through 180, and this is what a sin x graph looks like. All right. Let me just copy this graph below. Okay. We already know this, by the way. Okay. So we know that x, cosec x is 1 upon sin x. So a cosec graph will look something like this. Like this, and like this. A curve here and a curve there. All right. So uh, this is what a cosec x graph looks like. Right. So a final version of cosec x graph will only contain these orange curves. All right. So let's just draw it here. Cosec x. I will just copy it. All right. Let me delete this first. Yes. So a cosec x graph will be, wait, yes. The cosec x graph will only contain these two orange curves. So it's pretty simple, right? We know what a sin x graph looks like, and since cosec x is 1 upon sin x, it will contain these orange curves. Make sure when you draw it, you are mindful of where it's lowest, that is its turning point, which is at 190 and 270 degrees and -1 on the y-axis. All right, and a final version would look like this. All right, so this is it. Make sure to draw it, copy it down in your notebooks. Now, similarly, we're going to study the graphs of sec x and cot x as well. So let's just review cos x first, and from that graph, we are going to derive the graph of sec x. All right. So let me just remove this first. Okay. The graph of cos x. All right. So a cos x graph, as we know, looks like this. Let me draw it a bit neater. Looks like this. It could be neater, more neater. All right. All right. Okay. So this is what a cos x graph looks like. This is 1, and this is -1, and this value is 90 and 270 respectively, with this being 360. All right, 360. And here we have 180. All right. So this is a cos x graph, and using this, we are going to derive sec x graph for sec x. All right. I will just copy it down. Okay. All right. Notice that sec x, right? Sec x is 1 upon cos x. So a sec x graph will look something like this. Let me draw it from orange, or maybe a little dark green. Okay. So like this upwards, and from here it would be like this. All right. Like this. And from here it would be, it will touch it like this. All right. This green area, this green, these green curves are the graph of sec x. Sec x. All right. So final version would look something like this. So just erase this blue curve, and what this is the graph of sec x. All right. So from AS we learned that we learned what a cos x graph looks like, and since sec x is 1 upon cos x, uh, so the graph of sec x would be this green with this green part, and this is the final version after removing the graph of cos x. All right, this is it. Make sure to copy it in your notebooks. All right. Next up, we have 1 second. All right. So now we are going to draw the graph of tan x first, and using that graph, we are going to drive the graph of cot x, which is 1 upon tan x. All right, let's do it. So the graph of tan x, which we already studied in AS. So the graph of tan x is like this. This passes to the origin, and this is 180, and this is 360. This being 270, and this is 90. All right. In the exam as well, you don't have to be like draw the exact graph. You only have to sketch it, which is why the I'm not drawing the graph perfectly. All right, I'm only sketching it because that's the only requirement for the exam. Okay, so now the graph for cortex. We know that cot x is 1 upon tan x. So the graph for cot x will look like this. Right? Okay, this is what the graph of cortex will look like with the vertical lines will never touch 180, right? And similarly, it will never touch 360. I know this looks a bit all jumbled up. I will draw a neater version just below it. Okay. Let's just copy it down. All right. So this is what the final graph for cot x will look like. And of course, you can just draw the final version if asked for the graph of cot x and not all these steps. These were just for the sake of explanation. If the examiner asks you to draw a graph for cot x, you don't have to like show all these steps. You can just, draw this final version. All right. So this is the final graph for cot x. Right. What we did, we first drew the graph of tan x, and since cot x is 1 upon tan x, the graph is pretty much the inverse, like, right? Not exactly inverse, but pretty much opposite, right? So this is what this is the final graph of cot x. Okay. So yes, we are done with trigonometric graphs. Sin x, cosec x, cos x, sec x, and tan x and cot x. All right, that's it. And make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep on practicing, of course. And in the description below, we have dropped the link to our WhatsApp channel. Make sure to join it and stay updated and be part of discussions regarding your O level or A levels queries and pretty much everything in our WhatsApp groups. All right. And in the next part, which would be the last part of this trigonometric series, we will be practicing some questions, some exam-like questions, all right, which would be really useful. And yes, that's it for today. Thank you. Take care. Allah Hafiz.